Dundee. Right, who have we got on board now? It's me, I think. Evening, folks. We've got a comment there from somebody. Where is it? Where do I find these? Excuse me while I get the hang of this. If you're on board, just put your camera up and we can chat direct on the live. Right. Thank you, Brad, for that question. Uh, Bong Siraboon, I think, is a fascinating case. Um, there's several suspects in that one, and without giving too much away, I think there might be someone quite close to the family police have had a look at in recent times. Beyond that, I can't say too much. How much do you know about the case? Let me know. Can you guys hear me? If you want to come on board and chat to me, please, you can do it in voice as well. Okay, what other comments have we got here? I'm still learning this, guys, so Robert Keith Knight. That's fascinating, Robbie. I think it's Robert Keith Knight is an evil character. Whether he killed or abducted Bung is an open question. I'm not sure, to be honest. But he has, and there's Olive there as well. Hi, Olive. How are you? Olive sent me a question beforehand, which is an interesting one, about why people get away for decades. Let me get that question up.
Just a reminder, I'm doing my live tonight at 6:30 p.m.
Sure. Norma has asked me, why do criminals commit heinous crimes and go undetected for decades? Do they live normal, law-abiding lives and appear as upstanding community members? One of the big issues for these old cases is lack of DNA and lack of other biological material. Often police have an idea who the suspect is, but trying to change that, take that from information to evidence is the challenge. Where there is surviving DNA, then and it's been kept properly over the years, it can be fascinating and can be a road to solving these cases. But I think back in the day, you're talking about 30, 40 years ago, lack of evidence is often the problem. And you've also put up a picture there, Norma, about Andy Albury, who claimed to have killed 14 people. He's killed 2 people. The rest of the confessions are deemed to have been fictional. An attention seeker. He's serving 2 consecutive life sentences. So he, like a number of other criminals, likes to get attention. That isn't to say that any of those 11 other confessions aren't true, but there's been a bit of investigation into that, and people have said that it's most likely a fantasist. Good, you can hear, Brad. That's excellent. Thank you. Okay. Hi, everybody. Ryan said hello, Mr. Cruel. Okay. It's Mr. Cruel. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Glenn. Yeah, I think Andy Albury is full of shit, Glenn. He's certainly an evil character. He killed an Indigenous woman who he encountered when he was drunk, which was horrible. That was Gloria Pindon back in 1983. Her body was found stripped with 28 external injuries, some inflicted with a broken beer bottle. He also claimed to have killed Patricia Carlton, who was killed in September 83, a couple of months before Gloria. He later recanted the confession. Condren, someone else, Kelvin Condren, was convicted and served 7 years before his conviction was quashed. So Albury has 2 murders to his discredit, but I think that could be the extent of it. Thank you for that question there. Let's get the other questions here. We've got 16 comments. Just trying to work out how to work these things. So we've had a question about Robert Keith Knight and his possible involvement in murders and abductions and all kinds of horrible things. But Knight was never regarded as a suspect in the Boong Siraboon case. He jumped from or fell from the top of, I think it was the Melbourne Remand Centre, at the age of 62, while in custody on unrelated charges. I mean, he got 15 years back in the 90s for kidnapping and sexually abusing 2 girls. Police did question Knight over the death or the abduction of Boong Siraboon, but nothing really ties him into that, Robbie. So who else we got there? Dum, 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 dum. This is, okay, let's see the new comments here. Yeah, he does. You're right, Glenn. He does make up stories to get put. And you know, when you're serving 2 life sentences, then you've got plenty of time to on your hands to make up stories. And sometimes detectives will speak to these people and they will listen to the stories. And you know, it's easy to clear up cases when someone says, "Yes, I did it. Yes, I did it." So in 2014, Northern Territory Detective Sergeant Les Chapman, who'd arrested Albury in 83, did claim that Albury had boasted of killing 14 people in a spree while he moved from Townsville to Mount Isa between 1970 and 1982, which is obviously the Murder Highway series of murders, the Flinders Highway, where people have disappeared. And what have we got there now? We got another question. Brad's got a question about Paul Dale. You had a beer with Paul Dale at the Laylaw Football Club. He's a ripper bloke and spoke to me for about an hour. Very intriguing man. And he was, of course, charged with the murders of Christine and Terry Hodson, the informers, who had robbed Tony Mockbell's house in East Oakley with another police officer. But I always had a problem with the fact that Paul was accused of involvement in the murder because he was a convenient fall guy. Look at the people. Hodson had robbed Tony Mockbell. Hello, and it also that was also Carl Williams' drug stash, and Hodson had been had been informing on people for a long time. That's a short and dangerous business if you get involved in that. And I also felt that the story, Rodney Earl Collins was the shooter in the Hodgson's murder. And the story that he told police was that he bumped into Paul Dale in a downtown bar, and Paul Dale says to Collins, well, you're Rodney Collins, noted murderer. And Collins said, well, yes, I am. And Paul was supposed to have said to him, well, how about you kill the Hodgsons for me? And Collins says, wacko, let's do it. It doesn't seem very likely, does it? And I think that it's more likely that was one we should rack up to Carl Williams and possibly others, including Tony Mockbell. He obviously wasn't charged with that, but it's certainly intriguing, and I don't think Paul was rightly charged with that. In fact, Roberta Williams did tell me after Carl Williams' death that Carl had made that up, that he was trying to get as much benefits as he could by telling as many stories as he could, and that's what the police wanted to hear about, the Hodgson murders, and so he decided, well, let's go with it, and so I don't think that's true. I think that was Rodney Earl Collins, and that's the long and short of it. Rhino has asked me a good question. Has your safety ever worried you in your role as an investigative journalist? You've rubbed shoulders with some dangerous people. That is a good question. It's something my family has sometimes asked me. My daughter's jumped on the line here, by the way. I think she's grown up in this world with these things going on in our lives. Short answer is I think I've done some pretty stupid things in my career, and I've always had the confidence that if you behave ethically and honourably, then you won't be attacked. I never have been so far. I used to get some nasty calls late at night. People saying they're going to shoot me, burn my house down, kill my dog, all that sort of stuff. And I asked my mentor, former Victorian copper Brian Francis Murphy, who's now deceased, I was worried about this, and he said, mate, the ones who ring you are not the ones you should worry about. I've never really had any serious death threats or anything else like that. That's not to make light of it. There's always the possibility that some idiot could decide that he wants to have a crack at you. But I've been lucky over all, I think. Marnie Parsons asked me, I find it interesting when Sharon Wills said Mr. Cruel really smelt bad after coming back from a period. I'm not sure that she did say, I think she said there was a bad smell in the place where she was held for 19 hours. I think you may be confusing the offender there with Raymond Edmonds, Mr. Stinky, who did smell bad, but there was just an awful smell in the place where she was held captive. Here we go. Who else we got there? Jackie, thank you for your positive comment. What else we got here? In regards to, this is Robbie Neville, in regards to Mr. Cruel, there has to be a reason they stopped. Doubt it could be as he turned to murder with... listen, I don't think that Carmen Chan should be included in Mr. Cruel, frankly. That might be controversial for people, but there's just not enough evidence to put it in the same category. The description that Carmen's sisters gave was very different to the descriptions from Sharon Wills and Nikki Linus. They don't match. The MO is very similar, that he broke into the house in a similar way. But yeah, it's tricky. And I think the task force that looked at Carmen's abduction wanted to look further into the organised crime angles on Carmen's abduction, and they didn't get very far because there was a real urgency to put it into the Mr. Cruel category. And I think one of the problems, when Carmen's body was found in 1992, the homicide squad initially had it, and Doc Holliday, who was the head of the crime department at the time, decided it had to go back to the task force Spectrum. And the Spectrum task force had already decided that Mr. Cruel was the offender. So there was a bit of tunnel vision there. And of course, the Mr. Cruel profile was compiled from multiple cases, multiple descriptions, and I have a feeling that there was never really an offender that matched that profile, which was a composite profile. So, yeah, tough, that one. I'm yet to be convinced that Carmen was a Mr. Cruel victim. So, hope that clears something up there. Now, Dean Charge says the Carmen Chan execution really stands out as significantly different from the other, and I agree with this. The spray painting on the car, Asian drug dealer payback, more to come, was always regarded as a red herring. Maybe it's not. There's others in the task force that did take it seriously as a possible revenge killing, and there were outstanding questions about Carmen's father, John Chan's business associates. My investigation has found that he did have a couple of people in his circle who had criminal associations. He did some gambling, I believe. He had some outstanding debts that he didn't pay. I'm not making any allegations here at all, but these were live lines of inquiry for the task force, and the crew that looked at those felt that they weren't properly eliminated. So that's an open question. So I think more work. I'd like to do a separate podcast on Carmen Chan's murder, because I think there's a lot of questions that could still be looked at with some possibilities. So thank you for that one, Dean. Now, Carl died this is Hedley Auxorius, hope I pronounced it correctly. Carl Williams died very conveniently. I'm sure Roberta will say what she needs to. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. That's one of the really difficult ones for me, Hedley, because I learnt that Carl was going to give some assistance to the police, and that his father's tax bill was going to be paid, his daughter's school fees were going to be paid, and I wrestled with that story, whether it was right to publish it. I felt that it would put him in danger. In the end, I said, you know what, I'm not going to write it. One of the few stories over my career that I haven't written. And weeks later, I got a call from Carl in jail through his father, George. George had him on one phone. He was on his home phone, put the phones together. I was on the mobile, and Carl asked me whether they'd had a call from the Herald Sun saying that they were going to publish this story that about the tax bill and the school fees and so forth. And did I think they would publish it? And I said, Carl, I think they're going to publish it. It's a red hot story. I didn't want to do it. Anyway, Paddy Murphy, who's a very good journalist, published that on the Monday. And of course, Carl was reading that story in the Acacia unit when Matty Johnson loomed up behind him with the bike seat and killed him. So that's one story I'm glad I didn't write, frankly. But nonetheless, was it convenient? I'm not sure. I think the problem when you start to become an informer, which Carl had agreed to be, people in jail say, well, there's any doubt, there's no doubt. He could be giving evidence against all kinds of crimes. In fact, there was talk that he might have also been about to provide evidence about the killer of Richard Mladinich, who died down in St Kilda, forget the exact date. So it becomes a situation where Matty Johnson had multiple motives to kill Carl. But interestingly, he did not see Matty coming, not at all, in the sense of I asked him, you know, if this story was going to be published, would there be a danger to his life? Was he on good terms with, he had Tommy Ivanovic, who he's always friendly with, and Matty Johnson, who he'd been friendly with for some time. and they were putting money in Matty Johnson's TAB account and also paying for his canteen in jail. They felt he was on side. Otherwise, they could have sought approval to be moved. They didn't see it coming, and that was the end of it. So thank you for that question. Robbie Neville says Bendali Debs, who killed Rod Miller and Gary Silk down in St Kilda there. I think he is right for a number of other crimes. I'm forgetting how many did he actually... He was also convicted of a third, I believe, killing a prostitute, a sex worker, I should say. Let me just check that one. Yeah. Yeah, he killed, obviously, Rod Miller and Gary Silk, and also for the 1997 murder of a teenager, Christy Harty. He was an evil, evil character, and I have no doubt he did other things, no doubt whatsoever. Very nasty character. Let's go. What we got? A lot of comments here. If I don't get to any, I'm sorry. I'll try my best here. Coming up. Sylvain Terrett. Was Mimi the family dog present inside the Chan residence during the abduction? If yes, why didn't he bark at the intruder? I've got to say, I don't know about Mimi the family dog. I'll have to check on that one. I've never heard that mentioned before. That's a really good question, though. Yeah, good question. I'll take that on advice, Sylvain, and see what my sources say about that. Stephen Garland says, what do you think of Chopper? Chopper was a good mate of mine. But he was extremely good at giving people what they wanted, and also perpetuating a myth about himself, that he never pled guilty, that he was a staunch criminal. When Mark loved authority, Steve, he loved authority, and he hated criminals. He built most of his legend inside jail, where he was helped the screws, shall we say, quite a good deal. And so he made up all those murders. I'm going to do a podcast specifically on Chopper out later this year, where we'll talk about the 4 murders that he claimed to have committed. He didn't. He killed Sammy the Turk down at Bojangles. That was the one he did do, and he was actually got off on self-defense on that one. I think that was the only true confession in that 60-minute story, where he claimed to have killed 4. I think he did kill Sammy the Turk in cold blood because he wanted to feel what it was like to kill somebody, as macabre as that sounds. Nabil Magini, he was murdered around the corner. This is Brad Zerny. I don't know whether his killers fled overseas. Again, I'll take that one on advice. We've got another 10 minutes for more questions, so please hop in if you do have one. Going right to the top. Oh, this is interesting. Norma Olive Brown was married, I believe, to Andy Aubrey's stepfather. Norma, you should give me some more information about this character. I think it's worth looking at Andy actually to make sure that his confessions were all fictional. Possibly they were, possibly they weren't. I think it's certainly worth having a good look. But what an interesting family connection for Norma. Okay, I've got a question here. Sylvain Terrett asks, were the phone lines at the Chan residence cut? They weren't. That happened, I believe, at either the Linus, I think it's the Linus residence. No. That was actually the Lower Plenty one. We can't talk about the name there. That was the Lower Plenty attack in 1987, I believe. Leanne Stewart Elwood asks whether any truth to Mr. Cruel living in Thomastown. If you listen to my podcast, Creating Mr. Cruel, my view is Mr. Cruel didn't really exist. And when you look at the descriptions of all the different all the different cases and the different offenders, they're all very different. So have a listen to the podcast and you'll see what I mean. Headley Auxori has got a question about Shane the Vampire. That's Shane Chartres Abbott. I don't think, if you listen to my podcast, which is Trials of the Vampire on the Listener Network, I did a 10-part podcast on that about 2017. I am almost certain that he did not commit the heinous rape and assault that he was accused of, that took him to court on the morning that he was murdered. And even the person that claimed to have killed Shane did not kill Shane. The boyfriend of Penny, the woman who was allegedly raped by Shane, I think is a much better suspect for the killing of Shane. And he actually, if you gave, so I got another question. I'll get distracted here for a minute. Mark Adrian Perry actually gave a very detailed confession to Penny about how he killed Shane. So he was found not guilty of that. So in a trial, so that's where it stands. Stacey Vaitos, Chopper didn't hate all criminals. He was friends with that. He was friends with people in jail. I will say that. But when he got out of jail, Stacey, he went to the armed robbery squad, Rod Porter, and said, "I'm going to give up as many people as I possibly could," and that's what he did. Plenty of people were put in by Chopper when he came out of jail. So that's certainly, but you're right. He was friends with your dad, who had his own fairly notorious history. Right, Hawk Stormrider asked the question, if someone's method was sadistic in the treatment of female children, would he not deserve the name of Mr. Cruel? Yes, you're right. Absolutely right. The problem is that the Mr. Cruel came from a northern suburbs rapist who was significantly more cruel and violent. And this all sounds really hard to explain. But in many of the cases attributed to Mr. Cruel, the treatment of the girls, apart from the heinous act of sexual assault, was solicitous and gentle, as if he was trying to be their boyfriend or something. Very, very strange. Very strange indeed. So whereas this other northern suburbs rapist was indeed a lot more cruel, I think he even raped a nun, and was significantly scarier. If you take out the fact that I don't think Mr. Cruel killed Carmen Chan. That's a whole different category. China Douglas says, fucking oath he did. He was weak as fuck, Chopper Reed. You may have had some personal experience there. I'd love you to share that with me for my podcast, China. So you can send me a DM if you could. Mr. Cruel could indeed be at least 3 different people. Leon Rintoul, could be 5 actually. But also what I'm getting is an extraordinary number of women who were raped or abducted from homes which never made the Mr. Cruel list. And I've been shocked at how many people are talking about unresolved sexual assaults from that era. It was an absolute golden era, if you like, for these people breaking into homes and abducting children. I think in some cases police treated this is almost as a social welfare issue rather than a sexual assault case. There was no sexual assault squad, no rape squad in Victoria at that time, and the handling of these cases was less than satisfactory. So, and I'm hoping that we may have some people come forward with cases that could be solved even at this late date. So if there are people out there with cases that need to be solved, please let me know. I'll try to forward those to people who I know are serious in Victoria Police about bringing some of these guys to justice because they got away with it. Lisa Millhouse from Tasmania has got on board to ask, one of my friends had his Commodore searched by Victoria Police as part of the Mr. Cruel investigation. They didn't find anything, but we all started looking at our friend through a different lens. Well, That's true. A lot of people put in information about their friends and relatives, um, and they were looked at. Thousands of people, literally thousands of people. Thank you for that question. Sylvain Terrell asked, do you think it was Carmen's kidnapper that was witnessed during the man living in Coburg had a single gunshot? Yes, we've heard this. We've heard this. Boy, that was looked into. They can't seem to be able to pin it. They can't seem to find that individual. I know people are still looking at that particular piece of evidence, and I'm still willing to look at aspects of that if it can come to light. Annette Webster's come in from Perth. Thank you very much. She said you couldn't join us, but you've got there. That's fantastic. Yeah. Rhino said New South Wales has Ivan Milat as the fallback suspect for unsolved crimes. I think Melbourne has Bandali Debs. That's for sure. Ivan Milat's also got some possible crimes down here. So people will always talk about Ivan Milat. He was a travelling crook. Massive advantage back in those days. Police didn't cooperate well between the states, and the federal police was in their infancy back in those days. So hopefully there will be justice and closure for some families there. Okay. That's our half hour, people. It's been fantastic. I'm going to do this once a week or even twice a week if we get more people wanting to come on board. I hope I've answered all your questions, but I'd urge you to have a look at or have a listen to Creating Mr. Cruel and also Real Crime with Adam Shan, my twice weekly podcast. Plenty of material there, and we can discuss aspects of those podcasts as well. Okay, sorry, let me see. One last question here from, I won't use his name. He said, the use of handcuffs, ropes and knives and desire to inflict fear. Listen, you're right here. That is cruel. Absolutely, that's cruel. And we aren't saying this person is not cruel. Yeah, so I will agree with you on that point. Roscoe Hughes said, please do more lives. Which case keeps me up at night? Sharon Raymer asked me. Last question here. Cheryl Grimmer, the fact that you have a person who confessed to that murder, the abduction and murder. Also the abduction of Lucille Butterworth in Tasmania. Someone else who's, that's Jeffrey Charles Hunt, who admitted to the murder of Lucille Butterworth. And I really feel for the families of those individuals. And I really hope that I can continue to get those stories into the public spotlight and more information comes forward. So some enterprising police officer or a coroner for that matter. One of the other things is I want to get things back to the coroner because where they're unsolved and there hasn't been a coronial inquest, I think that's the very least that the system can do for families who've lost loved ones, particularly where the bodies have been recovered, as in the Cheryl Grimmer case and in Lucille Butterworth. So I'm really hoping that I can, before I'm finished, get some more coronial inquiries up on behalf of families to see what can be done, because that's the very least we owe these people, because sometimes the investigations were very much, very left a lot to be desired. So thanks guys, off for dinner now. So I'm going to do another one. I'll let you know when it could be early next week. So I'll keep you posted. Thank you once again for your support. And I really want to say, for an independent journalist like myself, support from guys like you really goes a long way. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to talking again soon. Cheers.